Hello everyone, welcome to Centricity Speaks. My name is Aditya and today I have with me my colleague Ishkaran Chhabra with me. In this episode today, we will discuss hybrid mutual funds as a category of investments in investor portfolios. Hybrid mutual funds have had a very specific utility in investor portfolios, traditionally favored by investors with a very conservative bent of mind who are looking to bump up returns in excess of what a typical FD would accrue to them on a post-tax basis. Over a period of time, investors have come to realize the importance of asset allocation, and hybrid mutual funds basically provide a very ready-made format for them to adhere to a very specific asset allocation. In today's episode, we will cover 4 main subcategories of hybrid mutual funds, which is A, conservative hybrid funds, equity saving funds, balanced advantage funds, and aggressive hybrid funds. We start with the fund or the category of subcategory of hybrid fund, which is considered to be the lowest in terms of risk and highest in terms of safety, namely conservative hybrid funds. So Ishkaran, can you throw some more light on conservative hybrid funds as a category?
Thank you, Aditya, for having me at Centricity Speaks. The conservative hybrid funds, as the name suggests, offer a balance between stability and growth with a greater focus towards stability of returns. The typical asset allocation within the category towards equity is up to 25% and balances in debt securities. The funds offer a higher return compared to pure debt funds while offering much reduced risk compared to pure equity funds. The funds are taxed at the marginal tax rate, which is as per the slab of the investor.
Which brings me to the next subcategory of hybrid mutual funds, which is equity savings funds. Now, I believe that this category is very similar to conservative hybrid funds, which we just discussed. In what way are equity saving funds similar or dissimilar to conservative hybrid funds, and in which scenario should an investor pick equity saving fund?
So Aditya, that's a very good question. The typical expected return, like a conservative hybrid fund, is 8 to 10% in equity savings fund, but how the fund differentiates is the equity saving funds, your debt is up to 35%, the balance is in equity and equity arbitrage, which makes 65% of the portfolio. From a taxation point of view, as the categorization of the underlying is towards equity, they enjoy equity taxation, unlike a conservative hybrid which enjoys only debt taxation, and therefore it is not at an advantageous position.
Okay, so what we are saying is that even if the equity component in a equity savings funds is about 65%, all of it may not be unhedged, and roughly there could be about 25 to 30% of arbitrage exposure also in it, which could lessen the risk but at the same time provide a higher risk adjusted return.
Yes, 30 to 40% is unhedged equity, 25 to 35% is hedged equity, and balance is in debt.
Okay. If we talk about the most popular of all hybrid funds, which attracts the highest amount of inflow, and just to kind of mention a statistic here, the total hybrid fund category enjoys about 5 lakh crores of assets of AUM within the total AUM of mutual funds in India. And out of that, the most popular, in fact, the most popular category has always been balanced advantage funds. So can we discuss why it is the most popular and what is the main advantage that it enjoys vis-a-vis other hybrid funds?
So Aditya, very interesting question. And out of 5 lakh crore, 2 lakh crore is balanced advantage fund, wherein the beauty of the category is that the fund manager can go as low as 0% in equity to 100% in equity, depending upon the quantitative or qualitative parameters on which they have built the portfolio. Some of the quantitative parameters on which they have built the portfolio are something like price to book, price to earning, market cap to GDP, the average mean differentiation between the mid and small cap. So all category fund managers have built certain allocation. How the fund manages the equity taxation despite the fact it goes as low as 0% equity is that the equity portion they manage by investing in arbitrage category as a underlying, so that
like
they just like equity savings, so that they can enjoy the benefit of the equity taxation.
So I think the biggest pull here is that the fund manager has discretion to increase or decrease his equity investments as per what his expectation is about the equity markets. So it essentially for investors, it they can outsource the decision of how when to be invested and how much equity in their portfolio to the fund manager of the balanced advantage fund. So this is basically the biggest pull, if I'm not wrong, of a balanced advantage fund.
Aditya, as it says, it's a ready-made solution to client's asset allocation strategy. If a client or the advisor does not want to tweak around with the asset allocation, depending upon the market, it's a ready-made
asset allocation tool. Yeah, so that's what we're discussing. So Ishkaran, that brings us to the final category that we're going to discuss today, which is aggressive hybrid funds, which was previously known as balanced funds before SEBI decided to change the nomenclature of these funds. So tell me how is, and typically aggressive hybrid funds are considered to be the highest risk category amongst these categories of hybrid mutual funds, or if you could just throw some light on this.
So Aditya, as the name suggests, hybrid aggressive has a substantially higher allocation towards equity, with the minimum allocation at any given point of time being 65% in pure equity, and it can go up to as high as 80%. The balance being in debt. These funds offer a higher return compared to the other hybrid categories, where typically the return expectation or the expected return could be in the range of 10 to 12%, but it offers a far substantial volatility in the portfolio compared to your other hybrid funds.
Typically higher returns also.
Higher returns also.
Right. So Ishkaran, if I summarize the tax profile of all these four categories that we just discussed, as well as the return profile, three of these categories, namely the aggressive hybrid funds, the balanced advantage funds, and equity saving funds, are categorized as equity taxation. And one of the subcategories, which is the conservative hybrid funds, is categorized as debt, which basically the income or the gain gets added to the marginal rate of taxation. As far as returns are concerned, the equity savings fund is considered to be the safest and the least risk category of all, and the aggressive hybrid funds, for obvious reasons, is considered to be the highest risk amongst all. But the one common thread is that all these categories are meant for investors who are typically a little more conservative and would also want to cushion their portfolios in the event of higher equity volatilities. So Ishkaran, prima facie, this seems like a too good to be scenario where one can just be invested in different categories of hybrid mutual funds and not be exposed to too much risk, right? And still enjoy returns which are better than a typical pure debt fund or even a fixed deposit on a post-tax basis. But I'm sure there are some risks involved. So if you could just also highlight some risks associated with hybrid funds, I'll be, the viewers will be very delighted. Yeah.
So Aditya, as it says, it's not as good as it sounds. One has to understand what the risk involved with these kind of investments are. So while picking the hybrid fund, one has to see what kind of equity exposure they want to take, because equity comes with a volatility. You can have scenarios where market go up 20% or can go down 20%. Then you have to understand what kind of credit profile or the fixed income profile the fund manager is building, whether it is in terms of the credit risk the fund manager is taking, whether in terms of the modified duration or the interest rate the fund manager is taking. So these are some of the factors which the investors should definitely consider before picking the specific hybrid category they want to invest in.
Also, of course, the equity exposure, the equity portion of the portfolios will also be subject to volatility in line with whatever the equity markets are doing at one specific point of time. So just to summarize, the debt portion of the portfolio in these hybrid funds are subject to both modified duration risk as well as, or interest rate risk as it is known, also the credit risk of the portfolio, and the equity portion, of course, is subject to market risk or capital market risk. Also, we have read quite a few articles post the tax tweaks that the recent budget brought to pure debt funds. There was always talk and discussion about investors now flocking to hybrid mutual funds in order to regain that tax advantage in their portfolio. So is it very wise for investors to flock to hybrid mutual funds from pure debt funds only to have that tax advantage? Is it really advantageous in your opinion?
Aditya, tax should not be the governing principle of investing in a fund. It has to match the client's risk profile, his risk appetite for what the underlying instrument is getting invested into. Only thing he can consider while investing in these kind of funds is from a risk reward perspective and from a time horizon perspective, what is the ideal fund that suits his portfolio, and that should be selected and should be part of his portfolio.
And of course, needless to say, one should always consult one's trusted financial advisor to have a better view of the investments and better to understand if any of these categories are even a good fitment in the portfolios or not, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly, Aditya. And just to add to that, there are almost 500 funds in this type of category. So it is very important to select the right fund also. What the fund manager profile is, what the fund manager outlook towards the market is, what the expense ratio in the fund is, and what sort of risk the fund is running in. So that's where a financial advisor can help you selecting the right fund.
Great, Ishkaran. It was a pleasure to have you on this episode, and I'm sure our viewers also had a fair, glimpse or window into the world of hybrid mutual funds. Thank you, viewers, for joining us today, and we'll be back with much more in our subsequent episodes. For any reference to the concepts that we discussed in these funds, a lot of these concepts were covered in previous videos also, and if you could refer to the previous videos to gain further insight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.